Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jason, here we are, walking by B. Altman's, the former B. Altman building.
What is that,
Over
a
here.
bookstore?
B. Altman's was an old-fashioned department store. You know, the building is more or less the same, but it went bankrupt, I think, and they gutted it. And initially, they turned the bottom part to this very nice, it used to be a fantastic business library that started on street level and went down, but it's now gone.
It says it's relocated.
Well, but the actually, it's a real pity because the infrastructure in here was top rate. Thomas Yoslov on 5th and 40th Street. Well, anyway, this thing was purpose built. It had special business rooms for business publications and SEC filings and all kinds of reference works. I mean, it was really extreme for business people. It was extremely valuable. And then here we have the Oxford University Press. But in the old days, this was your classic department store that sold high-end furniture, clothing, all sorts of things. It even had a rare book and map department, which is where I bought my first antique maps. And the guy who ran it was this really eccentric guy with a name that I could never forget called Forbes Smiley. And if you, he was one of these engaging people, kind of like a crooked version of Tucker, you know, who was
redundant.
Well, but I mean, this guy had a knack for uncovering very rare maps, which he then sold through B. Altman's and I think on the side. And if you Google that name, Forbes Smiley, in the New Yorker magazine, you'll find out that his knack was to go into these rare book libraries with an X-Acto knife and cut them out of the books.
What?
Yeah, and he got caught.
Oh my God.
And he went to prison for quite a while. I don't know how long.
Yeah, that's not good.
But I bought my first antique map from him, actually. All right, so here's the Church of the Incarnation. Today's Church Day. It's Mother's Day, of course. And I forget if it's this church or the Church of the Heavenly Rest, but there was one of them, it might have been this church, where the camp that I went to was called Incarnation Camp at age, I guess I was 8. And the bus pulled up here, the bus was here, my mother dropped me out. In those days you had those old steamer trunks.
Oh yeah.
And they're filled with all the camp clothes. And
that's the dumbest, no wheels, like who invented that? And was like, this is a good thing?
No, it's great for seaborne freight. I mean, you take one of these steamer trucks, you'd have a porter meet your vehicle or your horse or whatever. And
let that guy carry it. Who cares how much it weighs?
They would typically have these big carts, and they'd stack up neatly, and they'd go into the hold very extensive. It was smart for steam travel, but anyway, sea travel. But the bus pulls up here, and I had never spent more than any time, I don't think, other than sleepovers away from my parents. And this was 30 days up at camp. The first day, they say, all right, are you really going to like the activities the first day? We're going down to the range. Like,
oh yeah, the shooting range. You told us
and
about
they hand about 8 years old, they're handing out these 22
I think that's
rifles.
too young.
No, it's not actually.
Well, anybody who wants to educate 8-year-olds about gender identity would say it is.
5-year-olds about gender, but 8-year-olds. So we loved, it was an all boys camp, but we loved it, and we learned how to shoot, and right away we get into this program where you have to get a certain number of points per target, and if you can do that reliably, you start out and you're a marksman, then you're a marksman first class, and I got as far as sharpshooter.
Wow, that's good.
It was fun.
I mean, it is good. It's discipline and everything, and hand-eye coordination. It's a little dangerous, though, to give somebody so young such a dangerous weapon.
No, because they had people standing right over you, and they instructed you. And
why did they stop doing this?
I don't know that they stopped. I would guess they still do it.
I could understand somebody being upset about a program that gives 8-year-olds guns. This dog has 2 leashes. I don't know why.
It's a 2-leash.
So, Charles, there's an interesting thing I want to discuss with you. So, people may recall, I don't know if it was the last time we were out, but we experienced down by whatever.
Let's just
square.
wait a second.
What is it in front of the courthouse there? Foley Square. Remember, Charles, that we were broadcasting for 12 minutes.
And we got cut.
But What was happening when we got cut?
We were on the phone with Lee Stranahan and
Of Sputnik Radio.
Sputnik Radio, yeah.
And so a lot of people who are sponsors on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth have been watching High Dive with Lee Stranahan at its new time on Saturday. And for, I think, only the second time ever, maybe the third, but only the second time, I'm pretty sure, in 5 years, a broadcast from the apartment was cut off.
Wow, like
And
yesterday?
that was yesterday during the sponsor exclusive segment with Lee Stranahan. I've been able to restore it, and sponsors who go there now can watch the full broadcast. But it was interesting, Charles, because this is a C-3PO Jeep going fast.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, Charles, because, you know, without direct evidence of deliberate disruption, we must presume that these things are happening just from the myriad various conditions that are constantly changing. I mean, we're outside here, there's radio signals everywhere, there's software updates, it's a phone, it's a,
Right.
you know, it's a thing. So without direct evidence, I am loath to assume that this disruption is deliberate, but there are some coincidental aspects that we must consider.
Right.
Why is it getting cut off with Lee? And also, I'm getting emails from people who are known to me to be social engineers, both before the broadcast with Lee Stranahan and then separately mocking the disruption of the
Right.
broadcasts, which
Sort of bragging, the arsonist
Right.
visiting the fireside.
now that could be opportunistic, or it could be their work that they want everybody to know about. It's pretty odd.
Right. Well, I think before we get too deeply into this session, we should thank all the mothers and grandmothers
Yes.
around the world. It's
Happy Mother's Day.
Those of you who still have mothers around that you can spend with, you know, speaking of somebody who lost his mother in 2004, each Mother's Day, every day, with the person who brought you into this world is a day worth remembering and celebrating. And I thank you to those of you who are watching on this Mother's Day. I hope you don't take time away from your mother to do it.
And to mothers who are watching, thank
Right,
you, including
exactly.
my own mother.
Exactly, and grandmothers.
I would
And
imagine, Charles, on a day like today, there are women who are feeling very sad that they aren't mothers,
Right.
and perhaps have exercised their right to
Right.
terminate a pregnancy. And I know there's a lot of people who regret that. The ironic aspect of growing older is that you gain perspective on things, and my experience is that I'm frequently having sort of totally different viewpoints
Right.
now at age 50 than I did perhaps when I was 20 or 30 or even
Right.
40.
Right.
And so for people who are
Well-
you know, doing certain things at a young age, it's difficult to know that you're making the right decision.
Right, you know, you think about our educational system, and this is related to what you were just talking about. We go to school, and you have years and years of the history of this and the history of that, and this silly subject and that subject. The one thing that you're never taught in school, and really I think needs to be taught, is basic household economics, not simply home, but why it can make sense to live with somebody else, forgetting the romantic issues, as a matter of economy. You split the rent between two people and you can actually live more cheaply if you're smart about it. But then when you get into this issue of kids, I know I certainly, we bought, you know, you can know me, every single book that you could buy in the subject of parenting.
Oh yeah,
We had
Dr. Spock.
all that stuff. A great
weird,
book is
isn't it?
actually called What to Expect When You're Expecting.
Yeah.
It's quite a good book. But even that doesn't really prepare you for the reality that, particularly before the baby knows how to talk. What a schmuck that
That guy was a schmuck.
Before the child knows how to talk, it's not like they can sit there if they've got a problem and say, oh yeah, when you get done with that latte, it's fine, you can change my diaper. You know, you can get woken up at 2 a.m. and precisely the general rule of thumb I found, Harvard-trained
yeah.
pain in the ass doctors.
Ivy League trained vein doctor.
Right. It's called what? Dracula healthcare. But
Dr. Acula.
So, thanks for blocking the sidewalk there. Appreciate it. But
They don't really tell you what to expect.
well, and so when you think about, obviously it's fun to conceive children, but when you think about the role that is involved as a parent, if I had to describe one word as being central to the role of a parent, it's called self-sacrifice.
Right.
Not thinking of yourself, thinking of what's best for this baby, even if it's not good for you. Even if, in my case, I had to stop working for 5 years.
Wow.
To look after my 2 kids, which was a pleasure, actually. It was a great pleasure. Most fathers don't get the chance to go to every, rehearsal, every practice session, to talk with your children going to school and picking them up. And, you don't get that joy as a father typically, but I got it.
Well,
So-
and listen, just like I'm saying that you realize things when you get older, a lot of people are pretty young when they become parents,
Right.
and perhaps regret not spending time with their children when they were young.
Right.
And like a lot of things that you regret, it's too late
Right.
when you realize.
Right. So this idea that, the very idea that with regard to children, one half of the equation gets to
Right.
make the final call, betrays a complete lack of understanding of what being in a family unit is all about. You're
Right. surrendering
your identity to that unit,
Right.
trying to maximize the benefit of that unit. And yes, of course, if the mother's health is at risk or whatever, there are plenty of situations where, believe it or not, it doesn't involve these raving lunatics like Elizabeth Warren, where a mother will discover that she could give birth to a healthy child, but it will cause her death. There are many mothers who will say, let's have a baby, because it's better to bring a life on earth, and maybe that person will live a lot longer than the mother. There are people who do that.
That's
And-
got to be rare.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is at all.
Because then you're having a kid that has no mother. There's all kinds
Well,
of
the
complexities
father can
with
remarry.
that.
It's not. So, but the point is, it's not one of these cases where one person or the other, the mother or the father, should
Controls
have the final say. We're not hearing as part of this discussion, and credit to one of my brothers for bringing this point up, we're not hearing as part of this discussion that if the mother decides to have the child but the father didn't want it,
Right.
the mother is not burdened then with the sole responsibility for paying for the maintenance of the child.
Or raising the kid or anything.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And so it's and actually once we get past was it foghorn leghorn or leghorn foghorn?
Foghorn leghorn.
Foghorn leghorn, shouting at one another.
I'll say.
Right, which passes for a debate. There's a great
I
outfit.
am a chicken
Here's
hawk.
the Easter bunny.
Where's the? Oh my God.
Are you by chance from out of town?
Charles, we're going to get blamed for fat shaming.
I don't care.
I don't either. I think it is something that people should be
That was
ashamed
more
of.
color shaming. I don't know if you could see those colors. Those are just preposterous.
That was-
Lavender green or green, some kind of lime green.
Fupa on display.
What's that?
They're not going to tell you now.
All right. Okay. So anyway, at least one benefit of all this is maybe people will start to have more responsible discussions about. I think they will actually. Particularly, when you think about it, as you rightly point out. I'm of course older, but for years, for decades even, I've been aware of people around my age, women, who really regret that they terminated a pregnancy because now they're alone,
Right.
and they don't have any kids, and their prospects for dating are not as good as they once were, and they just get very morose.
Well, let's just think about what was happening in the country and in society in 1973 when Roe versus Wade was first passed. The birth control pill was only introduced, I think, less than 10 years prior. And a lot of people attribute this to granting a new kind of freedom to women where they could choose to have a career without the worry of being burdened with a child.
Right.
It gave them a little more say in the process.
But again, I just take exception to the phrase burdened by a child. Yeah.
This is what I've heard said about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I agree with that, but it's a technological development that occurred that did allow women to choose to be promiscuous and not become pregnant
Right.
if that's what they wanted to do. Previously not something they could easily accomplish.
Right. And that,
Additionally, we had a big movement towards feminism and bringing women more into the professional workplace, more and more women going to college, getting professional
Right.
degrees, becoming doctors, lawyers,
Right.
etc., running for office, etc. So there was a real shift in the kind of power dynamics between men and women, and shifts in attitudes. This also coincided with, from the 50s to the 70s, we had a major shift from kind of a puritanical outlook to movies that and entertainment that were a little more risque and featured nudity and violence. And
was that an atom shift?
yes, but I mean, I'm just saying, these things sort of collectively added to. I guess what I'm getting at is, like, my grandmother grew up in an age where if you didn't find a man by age 20, whatever, you were considered an old maid and nobody was going to marry you. And there was a real danger that you wouldn't be able to get a job or find a place in society that would allow you to sustain your own life.
Well,
So women needed to get married.
well, and of course that was, I don't know precisely your grandmother's birth and death dates, but in the
That
case,
generation, I mean.
so my grandmother was born in 1901, I think, 1900, died in 1969.
But I just
in
want to
that-
make sure I don't get derailed from this.
No, I'm not
because-
going to. What was different back then is that people had multiple children, and almost everybody had miscarriages, if not,
Right.
tragedies where kids died. So you would have many more pregnancies than would be surviving children, and that's why you'd start young.
Well, and there was also the whole very real aspect of if you had a farm, if you had a business,
Sure.
people were relying on their families for their own survival. And I'm not saying that I supported that way or a different way. I'm just sort of pointing out an observation here. Technology has played a major role in the evolution of society. And something that I observed, years ago when Facebook first came around, I would get a lot of emails
From old friends.
people I went to high school
Yeah.
with who had either gotten divorced or were in marriages that they weren't happy in.
Right.
And I sort of got a sense that it was kind of like people putting out feelers. And I mean,
Right.
again, back in the day
No,
when
that's true.
nobody got divorced, it was like, well, gee, I'm a single woman in 1950 and I have divorced, and you're going to be a pariah. No man will ever want to be around me. And they're back to the same problem. How am I going to get food? How am I going to get a place to live? So women were sort of forced to stay in this condition that they might not have liked.
Right.
And now I think people just have kind of no respect for marriage, because you can go on Facebook and be like, oh, this was an interesting person in high school. Maybe I could dump my husband or wife and start something up with them. It's just interesting to see how technology plays these roles, and sometimes good, sometimes bad.
Right. But I do think it's important. I remember in 1978 when I graduated, my parents threw a party for me, and a number of people showed up at the Yale Club here in New York, including a guy I had known pretty well, who I'm not even sure he was invited, but he showed up, and he was a not quiet guy. And somehow, once we were done with the party, we're standing on the street, and he says something like, "Do you want to come to this rally?
What rally?
This week?" And he said, "What rally is that?" He said, "Well, it's an anti-abortion rally." I'm like, why would I want to do that? And he just exploded, because abortion is murder, and life begins at conception. He's an ardent Catholic, and something had never come up.
You just hadn't thought about it.
Well, no, I'm just saying it's not something we spent a lot of time talking about
Right.
in college. But anyway, there are people who fanatically believe, and there are many of them, that it's not, as our friend reminded us, the ancient 13, and Saturday Night Live made fun of this actually last night. The Alito brief mentions, I think, a 13th or 12th century English precedent that says that, in so many words, that life begins at quickening. In other words, when the baby is
The heart and
through
everything.
through the dangerous zone. Like in the first trimester, the chance of a miscarriage is very, very high. That's why most sensible people do not announce
Right.
that the woman is pregnant, that the birthing person is pregnant, until
That's biology.
until one trimester has passed.
Right.
But I think this is age, and back then, to take the life of a quickened being inside the womb was punishable by death. It was murder.
Wow.
And there are people who fervently believe that today.
Right.
But to say, you know, as Hen Psaki, I'm sorry for that comment on Mother's Day, but
Is she a mother?
yeah,
She is?
it's a miracle. Yeah.
God, her kids.
She identifies as a mother.
But does she have children?
I think so. She talks about them. But anyway, to this on Friday, I believe, or Thursday or Friday, she said that the president stands by the comments others made that abortion is a right at any time.
And he has no position on whether or not people should influence judges, even though it's against the law. And on Air Force One, Jen Psaki announced the comments that she made at least seem to indicate that she thinks that the Department of Justice is the third branch of government,
She is a moron.
which is wrong.
She is a complete moron.
She is a complete moron.
A dangerous moron, which actually brings me belatedly to congratulate the art and comedy department for the poster. I want to announce that I figured out Joe Biden's password. We know we won't mention what
A hunter.
Hunter's is, but
It's good if you're 14.
yeah, but Joe's is dump, meaning dumb, with a P instead of the F word, 96. Because that's his favorite.
Well, Charles,
whatever.
I don't know if you caught this little detail in the poster today, but basically it's Joe Biden, the nation's top bum. I don't know how we didn't think of this before, but good on you for coming up with it. And he's also a dumb prick,
Right.
as people can see on the helmet there.
But you know, it's in the small world department. I don't know why this is happening, but for some reason, over time since 2016, have been interviewed at this point
yeah.
thousands of times by Russian media
Right.
people across the, you know, from the biggest stations down to the small stations and blogs and newspapers, and to a person, the interactions, the people I interact with are highly professional, remembering that English is not their first language,
Right.
and very perceptive and very gifted at putting, whether it's a media package together, a radio package, or a print package together. And for some reason, I drifted into this thing of also being interviewed by the Tehran Times. That I don't know exactly how they contacted me in the beginning, but I think it came out of that Press TV, which is, I don't know if it's still going. And they just sent me questions this morning asking me if I would comment on, and the questions all have to do with Biden's mental incapacity.
Yeah,
And
it's obvious.
I know, but here it is, the Tehran Times contacting me, and I've done, I don't know, several interviews with them. They know that I think very poorly of Joe Biden.
That's why they want your input.
Right, but I mean, this is coming to me now, and I'll send the answers in, attempted answers tomorrow. The nuclear deal has blown up, I think, already. And if it's getting
Wait, elaborate on what you mean by the
Iran nuclear
blowing
deal.
up.
Well, no, but even the Biden administration has given up on the idea that they're going to put they're going to surrender enough to get the Iran nuclear deal back on the table. So somehow inside Iran, people are sitting around, policymakers are sitting around saying, well, let's find out what this guy thinks about, and maybe he's not representative of the general public, but he'll give us his views. He always does. And it's certainly risen to the level where heads of state around the world are thinking about this numbnuts, who is the resident of the United States at the moment, and resident of the White House, I should say. And it's just crystal clear. It would be like, one of those movies where you allow a toddler who can't speak to say, why don't you cross in traffic and see what happens? I mean, That's what we've got with this idiot and this team of idiots. I mean, you have to be pretty effing stupid to say that you're going to work for an idiot. I mean, it's one thing to be an idiot, but to say, oh yeah, I think I'm going to...
Hey, the fool who follows the
right.
fool.
And separately, another hee-haw idiot, Kamala Harris, gave some commencement address, at some Tennessee university, or a university in Tennessee, where it was all about her. I've done so, accomplished so many firsts. And the best commencement addresses I've ever been to are ones where the speaker is extremely famous and extremely modest, and talks about that, while this is a significant milestone in your life, for you and for your parents, it actually marks the beginning of your role and engagement as an adult in a full-time job environment. And we hope, I sincerely hope you get the most out of life and do this and do that. Not I did this and I did that. It's all about me. Pat me on the back. I mean, it's just pathetic, frankly. It's particularly pathetic when you're bragging about your failures. I mean, as the Taliban has now announced that all women should stay indoors.
I have more on that.
Good. Should stay indoors, and if they go out, should be completely covered up. Okay, this is the team that said they had all scenarios, as my Finnish friend likes to say, all scenarios contemplated, and they planned for every possibility. So they planned for this. At the same time, they're saying it's a woman's right to abort a baby on demand until and even after birth, some argue.
Yeah.
That's okay, but we took a whole country's worth of women who were in school, and by our precipitous and inept withdrawal, scandalous withdrawal, we enriched a terror state with opium, and a ready source of opium, and now all our weapons to sell, to bring the people of Afghanistan before medieval times.
What's worse than that, Charles, and I'm going to share a detail with you of a scenario that I've been made aware of that they did not anticipate. And it's interesting, too, because Trump had another speech in maybe Pennsylvania or something, and he was talking about how they left 70,000 vehicles.
Right.
And when you think about the vehicle shortage right now in the United States, anybody who's had a need to purchase a car or try to fix their car, just think about that. Set aside the weapons for a moment. 70,000 vehicles. I'm sure there was a ton of fuel. How mobile was the Taliban before that? And here's what I want to share with you. People may recall my interview with Marzia Sadat, the young woman who escaped Afghanistan, in part with help from Crowdsource the Truth viewers who were generous enough to send her money through Western Union. Her family has been threatened by the Taliban.
Nice.
And there's apparently Taliban in Pakistan.
Oh yeah, they're
threatening her directly.
Those are different Talibans, and they hate each other.
Well, they're militarized now with U.S. weapons, and their ability to spread their terror regime across the region is greatly enhanced. Now, separately but related, there's a R-35. Separately, that's a crazy car right there, Charles.
Is it? Okay.
Godzilla.
I'll take your word for it.
Separately, Lindsey Graham was on Brett Baier this morning. Well, he's escalating the war, and he's demanding now that Russia be declared a state sponsor of terror. But here's the irony. There is a photograph of Lindsey Graham with Traitor John McCain. And who's the third guy there with? Not McCarthy. Maybe it is McCarthy.
With the Azov Brigade?
In Libya.
Oh, in Libya?
Giving an award to a terrorist as the United States was arming and funding what the news calls, what do they call them? Moderate terrorists.
Of course,
moderate
rebels. Terrorists, right.
But it's the United States that's enabling terrorism in Libya.
57th and then.
In Libya and in Syria.
All over the
and
world.
Elsewhere.
Well, in America.
And by giving these weapons to the Taliban, we've just supported another terror regime. There's no sensible reason for leaving that stuff in Afghanistan.
I mean, Lindsey Graham ought to star in a new sequel. We call it Mayberry DUM. Sort of, what was it, RFD? Mayberry, with... I mean, he should just shut up. His instincts are uniformly terrible, and he yaps and yaps. He's on every Sunday show and news show. But nothing ever gets done.
Crime gets done.
Yeah, and I want to know what is it that the deep state has on Lindsey
Oh,
Graham?
no, wait a minute. Didn't we want to go to...
We're going to go left and then down.
Well, so they've now been to the justices' homes. I think Alito, they said, was transferred to some safe location.
It's outrageous.
Well, I mean, again, this is all over a draft, and we don't even know if the final decision would have reflected what was in the draft.
It's just the same. This is out of the hard left playbook. You know, this is the same approach. You find decision maker, you threaten the decision maker, you threaten the families, and even if you don't necessarily get everything that you want, you let the world know who's got the juice and who doesn't have the juice. And this has to be met with a ferocious counter-response.
They should be arresting any person. Lee Stranahan brought up a really great point on our show yesterday, which is that you're not allowed to go to the judge's house to bring them fudge.
Right.
The law is that you're not allowed to do anything to influence the judge.
I know. And these are people. I think what we're going to find out, if we're allowed to, is that this was not just a clerk. This is likely...
It's a coordinated effort.
Well, it's likely one of the Supreme Court justices.
Why are we saying that?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Why do you think that?
On Mother's Day, and abortion is topic number one. It's not the fact that the economy is falling apart, crime is rising.
World War III is about to happen.
No, we're going to spend weeks and months talking about abortion. So they knew they were trying to get this in the public discourse well before Mother's Day so the Sunday shows could deal with it, etc. We don't know, I don't know whether all of the lefty Supreme Court justices are healthy. I don't know if Sonia Sotomayor is healthy, but I do know she appeared at a panel at Yale with two of her, I think one or two of her clerks, one of whom, an Indian guy, is an ardent social justice warrior and is one of her clerks. So to me, I go where the most likely place is, and you now have just an ambulance.
So loud. God, that's killing me. Of course, it's NYU.
Right.
Giant piece of shit.
What?
We're gonna
not
get
Tiffany music.
Yeah, we're gonna get. Okay, good. It ended. Maybe not. Charles, it's like disco night.
Is this Tiffany's music?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
You might be surprised.
The new Tiffany? No, Tiffany's was very elegant.
So you go to where the easiest choice or the most obvious.
So one of the beauties of the law was you had people, as I understand it, and again I'm not a lawyer, was that you would understand the statute, you'd understand the debate that gave rise to the statute by looking at its legislative history, you'd understand the case laws that interpreted various statutes, and with all these things to look at, you could then decide how you wanted to change the statutes or how you wanted to argue a case or whatever. That is moved from there to evidence-based, precedent-based argument to fuck all the statutes.
Yeah, this is what we want.
We want this, and we don't care how we get it, and we're just going to take it.
Hey, look, we have cops back.
Counterterrorism.
Yeah. Is there terrorism? Oh, because they're expecting probably anti-whatever protesters.
Right. So, but now you're taught in law school, and I know this firsthand because the dean of Yale Law School addressed me and a bunch of other people in May of 2019 explaining this, that they were teaching at Yale. What distinguishes Yale is that it's not just about the study of the law, it's a study about the inequities of how laws are drafted and the context in which the power people make the laws, and maybe the power people shouldn't have made these laws, and maybe the laws themselves are unjust, and maybe it's up to us.
That's how we have jury nullification.
Right. And so anyway, what is this? Is this
It's art.
I think that's OT, art.
But wait a second, Charles. There's an important thing along the lines of what you're saying. I think a lot of people don't realize that the Supreme Court does not make laws,
right,
and federal judges don't make laws. They are there to enforce the laws created by Congress. We've lost that.
Right. And this, I'm just pointing out, this was 20 years ago, prime real estate. Harry Winston is a very expensive jeweler. I think that middle one was Rizzoli Books. And these were super high-end stores. They're all vacant.
Harry Winston is vacant?
Well, I mean, that may not be vacant, but these other 3 out of the 4 prime storefronts here, and this right across from Trump Tower, or kitty corner of Trump Tower, vacant.
Yeah, it's bad. But this whole concept of litigating from the bench, you know, the judges don't care what the laws say.
Right.
They do whatever they want. If you present evidence or facts that don't align with what they want to have happen, they ignore that. That's happening right now to me in the Emmys case.
Right.
It's extremely bad, extremely unfair, and I am not going to allow it to occur.
Right. So this decision has these actions. You can't put this genie back in the bottle.
Correct.
As we talked the last time. Whenever the final decision comes down, it's gonna please nobody.
Right.
Right. It's gonna if they flip and uphold Roe v. Wade, you're gonna have the pro-life people go even crazier. If on the other hand they overturn Roe v. Wade, obviously the situation will reverse, and beyond that, the clever weasels who like to do this kind of stuff are going to compare every word of the final opinion to the first opinion,
Right.
and they're going to note the differences and conspiracy theories about why there are
Analyze,
differences, and it's going to lead to turmoil and a need to clarify the opinion. So,
Well, but it also is going to lead to, if someone says, hey, this was good, we should do this all the time when we get some sort of
right.
opinion from a judge that we don't like, we'll intimidate the judges, and instead of having a country of laws, we're going to have a mob rule. You like this BMW I8 more than I do, Charles.
Well, it looks, I mean, I don't like
It looks
the colors.
amazing.
I don't like the color scheme, but
I don't like supercars with 3-cylinder engines.
yeah.
And they've discontinued it.
Crazy
It's one of the,
sunglasses. Yeah.
it is one of the worst, as far as resale value, of all time.
Right. So what should happen in this case is when they find the perpetrators, and especially if it's the Supreme Court justice who is a co-conspirator,
Impeached.
impeach the Supreme Court, strip of law licenses. You can never practice law. You can
Jail.
never hold, and a jail.
This is an insurrection.
Right.
That's what people don't understand.
Right.
When you are a member of the public and you go to a public building like the Capitol and stand outside of it, I'm not saying going into it and doing violence and climbing the walls or what should be done. And in fact, when you and I were there, as soon as we observed people climbing up the truss and the we said, you can't climb on the stuff. But what I'm saying is, if you're a member of the public who goes to a public government building to stand outside and show your solidarity with the president at the time, that is quite a bit
That's
different.
constitutionally protected.
That's quite a bit different than being a member
Taking
of the
salary,
government,
taking money from the taxpayers.
like a
and-
clerk of the court
and
who's
corrupt.
taken all kinds of oaths to the Constitution, oaths to code of conduct under the Bar Association, and to break all that,
Right.
to subvert.
Right. You're making a market and influence. There, you're
It's
making.
subversive. Isn't subversion
Yeah.
what
No. Of course.
insurrection is all about? It's an infiltration of the government.
Right.
That is a war crime. It's a
Serious
you're a
crime.
foreign combatant.
Well, you're national.
Well, national. And a domestic enemy of the Constitution is what you are.
Right, and that Yale Law School would graduate people who think this way. You know, would teach people to think
Promote
this way. It would promote it. Suggests to me that Yale Law School and Yale itself.
Well,
perhaps-
careful.
What?
But that guy was not paying attention.
I'd be a pretty heavy hood ornament.
But Charles, this goes back to what you've been
I
talking
just
about for a
wanna-
long time.
I just want to finish my thought, if I may. What it means is that, to me, that the redress against Yale should be stripped of its tax exemption. because
Exactly what I
was.
was going to say.
This is not education. This is propagandizing. This is
Indoctrination.
it is making members of your crew more valuable. You're showing the world that you can game the system, and once you get, it's like if you go back to Hillary Clinton, we talked about this last time. You know, her whole shtick is that rules are for other people,
Right.
and she controls the process by which people are prosecuted or not prosecuted. So she agrees that she'll run the speech by the people at Wellesley, and then she gives a different speech and
Right.
still gets her degree. I would have yanked her degree.
I agree.
No degree. for this, and sorry, we don't care that you won't be going to Yale Law School. That's your problem.
Well, this speaks to the broader problem of many of the people who want unfettered abortion, is that we've got an entire society that does not want to acknowledge consequences.
Right.
You want to walk on stage and slap people and still get the award. I mean, it's too late to resolve that, but the only way that that problem could have been blunted would be to have the LAPD immediately remove Will Smith and disqualify him from the competition. So all these people think you can go to a Dave Chappelle comedy show and go up on stage and slap him. Perhaps they would realize, you know what, if I do that, I'm going to lose the biggest opportunities of my life. I'm going to go to jail. But instead, no, none of that happens. You do whatever the hell you want.
Right. And we had an incident as we were coming up here. Should we talk about what that guy did?
Yeah.
So we're walking up the street. Jason and I are talking, and somebody comes next to me. The next thing I know, I hear this strange sound, and Jason says, and I believe it is, the guy fired off his taser, trying to, shock us.
Inches from us.
Yeah, trying to get a reaction. And of course, I was oblivious.
Now, wait a minute. We got a video crew here. What are they expecting?
Well, this is
there violence?
Well, this
demonstration?
maybe they're expecting those idiots to come back. It's quite a crew. A lot of cops, though.
Yeah, because I guess they're expecting this is where anything would happen if it was going to. AT&T should install a micro cell over here so that these guys can get good reception while texting.
Yeah. But pretty sad that on Mother's Day, these deranged people would feel that it's necessary to, there's another crew over there. So clearly something is going to happen.
Now, this disgusting woman who goes around inserting a turkey baster into her vagina and then forcing people to smell it, which frankly I consider sexual assault. I mean, certainly if some disgusting homeless man was walking around
We get it, yeah.
forcing women to smell his bodily fluids, that guy would be arrested right away and probably even treated like a sexual offender.
Because he is a sexual offender.
As is this woman.
Right.
And the police would do nothing. In fact, when I was last
This is brilliant.
accosted by her,
Not brilliant. That is so unhealthful.
the police seemed to know who she was, and certainly knew who.
Crackhead Barney, though.
Exactly.
It
Well,
was in this piece about her that I read.
I mean, this person should be arrested. She's a criminal.
Now look how beautiful that is, flower arrangement. On the one hand, it's beautiful, but on the other hand, it's so sad that you have to have these
Fenced off.
fences in it, as if that kind of a fence is going to stop a big crowd.
No, it's not. That's just to let you know, don't do it.
Yeah, have you ever been inside St. Patrick's?
I have. A friend of mine got married in there.
Really? It's a big ceremony?
It was. It's a friend of mine who I've mentioned to you before. We can discuss it later.
Okay.
I don't want to mention
We
his
don't
name
have
on
to do
air.
that. Yeah. So here we are, and this is Saks Fifth Avenue ahead of us.
Well, I expected we would see some sort of demonstration outside St. Patrick's. And I guess, maybe they thought better of it because they knew the cops would be here today. They did a lot of mischief yesterday.
I think any kind of representative polling will show that violence in the name of pushing for abortion on demand, which is only available in 7 countries in the world, out of the 200 countries in the world, is not going to poll well in a country where even today there are a lot of religious people who on religious grounds alone are against unfettered abortion. You can be enormously popular in the faculty lounge, in the green room, in the editorial rooms, amongst multinational companies, and know-it-alls, but you're never going to resonate in America today with the mass of the voting public with an idea that we should move off the precedent that was set in Roe v. Wade, where in theory abortion was to be safe, legal, and rare, and very limited exceptions of abortion after the first trimester. We're going to move from that to
Just kill babies.
whatever you want. You wake up, after they're born, according to Ralph Northam.
I can't believe he said that or thinks that.
And that he's a physician. I mean, just for saying, to think that way.
He should lose his medical license.
Right.
Because you're supposed to do no harm.
He's all harm. There's your roller.
Why'd you park the roller? Exactly.
It's a Harvard roller, Harvard Crimson.
I told you that I saw a review of a Chinese
Yeah.
EV that is basically a copy of that and 1/5 the price, and the reviewer said this is actually better than the Rolls-Royce.
Yeah. Well, I've been
that's-
lowering my carbon footprint. Yeah, I think this is like child's art. Can this be a serious artist?
I'm sure it is. It's it's
Alexander
a theme. It's a
Benjamin
genre.
Navet. It's a French artist. I mean, this to me is 6th grade level art.
I don't know about that. That's
what I think it is.
fabricated and
No.
materials. They don't want you to touch it, which makes sense.
Yeah. But it's actually, I mean, I suppose on Mother's Day people are celebrating it at home, but this is kind of empty.
Well, because I think people are more and more realizing that the city has been overrun by maniacs. After that guy demonstrated his taser for us,
Right.
I just basically, I said, it's really kind of a matter of time until something happens, particularly given the, the footprint that you and I have, the fact that everywhere we go there's a camera that anybody who's tuning into the internet can basically find us. Oh, that person, I guess, was waving because she didn't want to be on camera, but she wasn't. Here, Charles, we can recreate the money shot from Daydreams of Dubai and go under the arch.
There you go.
Not quite as dramatic.
No. But it's actually kind of quiet as well. There you have the Empire State Building in the distance. Think about
what is this?
Lao Feng Jiang or I Love New York Gifts.
The Lao Feng Jiang, that's new.
Some kind of jewelry.
Huh.
I mean, I bet you this stuff is like twice as expensive as it really should be, not more.
So Charles, did you get to see that Lindsey Graham on
I just turned the TV. I would rather watch
Brett Baer?
infomercials on Bloomberg on the weekend having to do with...
But it's important. He was telling the Professor Hulk that we need to help Ukraine win and that we need to defeat Putin and that there's no other option. So if you're Putin, this is escalating the war. It's not making anybody in Ukraine any safer.
Well, and if we think about it, this is what I've been saying to our friends and our friend Katja for years. The only person who benefits from the main power that benefits from conflict between the U.S. and Russia is China. China. And they're very pleased to see the U.S. waste time, energy, and people on this. Yesterday, I believe, they sent extra jets into Taiwan airspace.
Who's they?
The Chinese. They have instructed, apparently the government's instructed all people they control to stop using American software and American computers, suggesting that they know something's coming and they want to be ready for the inevitable sanctions that will follow. And I'm sorry, when I try to get involved in things with other people and it matters, I try to see that the other person has a consistent record of accomplishment in whatever they claim to be, whatever they claim is their specialty. People in the Democrat and the Republican Party have a consistent record of failure when it comes to foreign policy and economic policy at home. These people are boneheads. And you almost want to, I really wish I could track down that dentist that I played tennis with, remember, in the hot tub. And
with Peter G. Peterson?
Yeah, and we're in the hot tub, and I want to say it was like 1989, and his kids were much older than mine at that point, my only kid at that point, but he had kids that were like 15 and 17, and very good nationally ranked tennis players. So we were all playing and relaxing at the end of the day in the hot tub, and Peterson started opining about something about the Middle East, and this dentist out of nowhere said, "That's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life." And Peterson was like, he just got up. He just got up, put the towel over his fur all over himself, and exited stage left, and avoided us for the rest of the vacation. It was hilarious.
Should have asked him about bludgeoning Mary, what's her name, Percy. I think that's her name, Mary Percy. There was some. I know that guy. That guy is an Antifa asshole.
Well, let's stay away from him.
That guy has accosted me on the street.
Yeah.
Hey, Antifa sucks.
Jason, I
Sorry,
prefer not
Charles.
to get into it with him.
That guy is a midget asshole.
Yeah, but
Sorry, Charles.
it's okay. You'd almost really want to let have these talk shows and have a feature when somebody gives a really stupid set of comments. You hit a buzzer, like the golden buzzer on America's Got Talent. You hit that thing, the person gets shot out of the seat into a gigantic mound of horse poop.
Yeah, that would be good. Well, but the thing that Lindsey Graham was telling Professor Hulk is that if Putin wins, then China will invade Taiwan, and if we defeat Putin, then they won't do that.
Oh, he's an idiot.
Yeah, I don't think the two correlate at all. It's too late. China's already preparing to do what they're going to do on the basis that Joe Biden and everybody in his administration are dumb.
Well, but it wasn't that. It was also they'd seeded the Trump administration. I mean, let's think, for example, about Harvard. Harvard is supposedly this great place, best university on the planet, whatever, and the chairperson of the Harvard chemistry department was a fucking Chinese spy for years.
Unbelievable.
And they only recently found out about him. Who knows how many other ones there are. These are brilliant people. If you're going to be in a skateboard and dress like a hippie.
They're making a video. I saw the first guy had a big camera.
If you're going to do that, and look like that, try to be like 16 or 15 or 13. Don't be doing that when you're in your late 20s, early 30s.
I don't mind that. I just don't think they should be doing it in places that risk people's safety.
Yeah. So to push, we will wake up hopefully tomorrow, all of us, and we'll know what Putin decided to do.
Because it's May Day.
It's Victory Day tomorrow, the 9th.
Oh, not May Day, right. Right. But they said that it's going to be nuclear themed, that it's a military parade.
We'll learn, and I don't, I actually, the more I examine what I know of history and the context, the more I believe. I mean, I don't like the current Pope, but even he says that NATO was wrong to push eastward, and I agree with that.
Lindsey Graham told Professor Hulk, NATO needs to become stronger.
He's an idiot.
He is an idiot. He's saying everything to inflame the war.
And actually, I don't know if you had a chance to read that Zero Hedge piece I sent you, but
Which one?
The one that I said was a must-read.
I did start to read it.
Yeah, and
I didn't understand most of it because it was all talking about this many basis points and this kind of financial thing that I had no idea what it was.
Well, the capitalist model for making money depends.
Oh, careful.
I got it.
Dude, that dude's moving to try to hit people. You're an asshole. North Carolina.
Actually, I was the one who was the asshole, but...
Yeah, but that guy's speeding up. It's not just you. After you, other people were crossing and he just sped up.
Right. But so the business model for capitalism doesn't work if there's no top-line growth in revenue.
Right.
Right. So and what the World Economic Forum people referred to in that article as fart-sniffing buffoons.
Oh yeah, that part I saw.
Which I totally agree with. They're all for let's have declining revenues and declining profit, and let's get people to give up their assets and be serfs to the government and live in small apartments and not only work 4 days a week and accept misery and start eating insects so we get rid of steaks and
right. Fake meat.
These are fart-sniffing buffoons, and that's really the problem. I mean, when I went to these great colleges and schools, they were still run by people who believed in advancing learning. It wasn't just social justice bullshit. It was, how do we push the frontiers of knowledge?
This was the SDS.
How do we take the SDS were marginalized when I went through?
No, but I'm saying they said guard your schools. The plan to infiltrate the schools was what they did after.
But I like to remember the great school horseman and the great college, Yale and Harvard School, I went to when it was great.
Yeah.
Now it's painful to go back to these places, and I can't read the alumni magazines. They make me mad.
I'm sure. And by the way, if you want America to be great, you're the most radical terrorist organization ever.
Right.
Worse than the KKK,
And-
worse than the Taliban.
This guy
Worse
better
than-
stop.
Yeah, I hope he gets run over. You see these guys broadcasting music louder than they're supposed to, going through
But he's
the...
cool.
He's an asshole. I've seen that guy before, and he likes getting the music all over the video. I hope he gets a ticket. I hope he gets a ticket that really makes a dent in his income.
Probably got kicked out of the traffic
They're
police.
not giving anybody tickets. I want to tell you something, Charles. I was walking down the street the other day. I was at 7th Ave and 34th, which people who watch the show will recognize as a really busy intersection.
Macy's.
And there was a cop, a female, well, I'm not a biologist, but there was a person directing traffic in an NYPD traffic uniform,
Doesn't seem to be correct, but
and somebody drove by on a quad, one of these really loud,
right.
you know, not legal for the street, dangerous for the dude driving it, loud as hell,
Right.
breaking all the noise ordinance laws and everything. This is a good dog outfit. And I said to the NYPD traffic person, including breasts person, I don't know what you would call that without a biology degree. I said, isn't it illegal to drive one of those things in New York City? And she said, I'm a traffic cop. And I said, that's traffic. And she said, well, it's for the NYPD to handle. And I said, don't you have a radio to call them? And then she started ignoring me.
Right.
So it immediately caused me to think of this whole dust-up between the idiot mayor and the idiot guy who's the president of the police union,
Right.
where he said, oh no, cops are texting on the phones because the city gave them phones. Not because they aren't doing their jobs, it's the city's fault. And the question that I have is, if the city is issuing smartphones to the cops,
Right.
that could be a good idea. If there's some kind of NYPD communications app on there where the traffic cops can now say, hey, illegal vehicle traveling south on 7th Avenue, please alert.
Well, they don't do any of that.
Do something like that. But I'm saying, if they were using technology to police the city more effectively and keep everybody safer
Moron.
and enforce the law more effectively, then it makes sense. But if they're just blowing tons of money, giving the cops cell phones so that they can text people all day and waste time,
Right.
it's another good example of
Here's where that business library went.
Stravos.
Stavros Niarchos.
All right.
But I mean, you just we look in here for a second. I mean, this
Looks
is well, this is expensive.
You mean the
Now,
remodeling?
this is New York Public Library is separate and apart from the city government, but it's this is a lot of money went
Looks
into
nice.
fixing this place up.
Well, that's good though, because people can come here and read and learn
Yeah,
stuff.
there's two people who read. These
Yeah,
days.
nobody does that.
It's actually kind of sad that the libraries are inhabited. They used to be inhabited by homeless people, and who just sleep in there during the
Right.
day.
I don't think they're learning very much.
Oh, that business library I was talking about, I'd go in there to get a filing on Harkin Energy or something like that, and I'd go back to the place and I'd be working.
Here, come here a second.
And all of a sudden, you know how when somebody leans back on a chair and they're prone to snoring, but it's not like the nice little cute little girl snore. It's like this bear hibernating snore that you've been asleep for 3 months, and you're like to break the window with the vibration of all the. And I mean, it literally so loud that you couldn't concentrate. You point that out, and the guard would send somebody over. Guard would come over and try to get the person to wake up, and they couldn't wake him up. They tried to throw him out. They couldn't throw him out because he wouldn't wake up. Just nuts.
We've probably commented before that MedMen is at 433.
And there's Lord and Taylor,
Yeah.
which is
out.
like the Altmans. It was a smaller. I don't think Lord and Taylor sold furniture. I may be wrong about that,
It's clothing, really.
but.
Nice building.
Yeah, it was a nice store. I think they used to have a restaurant in the top of it, didn't they?
I don't remember that. I mostly was just hanging out in the section where my grandmother was.
Yeah.
I was very little.
I'm sure they thought that was adorable.
She died when I was like 15 or 16, so
Oh.
I was a kid.
So,
From
anyways,
smoking, Charles.
she died of
Lung
smoking.
cancer, yeah.
Oh, sad.
Very, like by the time it got diagnosed, they were like, oh, she kind of doesn't have any lungs left. It's all cancer.
Oh boy.
Yeah. That's how tough she was. She was like sipping air through that much of a lung.
Wow.
And she's like, I'm not quite feeling well.
Wow.
Yeah. But, yeah, Mother's Day.
So on the subject of education, we've gone from pushing the frontiers of knowledge and hoping that these special spirits would come along who were child geniuses and they might with clearer eyes see things. In math, I know my father, I was talking to my father a number of days ago, and I said, Dad, did you know anybody who got a Nobel Prize? And
Which
as
one?
usual, my father said, the correct question is, how many people
Yeah.
do I know who got a Nobel Prize? But anyway, one of them was this guy who had gone, I think he definitely was, he might have been 15 or 16 or something like that, and he was with my father at the Bohr Institute, having gotten his PhD. Studying at the Bohr Institute. He later won a Nobel Prize, but my father and mother kind of looked after him because he was his kid.
Oh, wow.
And he couldn't, he was not old enough to drink.
That's so funny. And then he goes on. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
But oftentimes it's those type of people
Right.
in the math and sciences who see things so clearly because their minds are not yet cluttered by all the other problems that we have as time passes. And it used to be that at the great universities you would encourage these spirits to connect with the leading lights in the field, and the leading lights would say, well, what do you think of this problem that no one's been able to solve? Got it. Here's the
Oh, it's
answer.
like Goodwill Hunting.
Yeah, right. And so instead what we have now is we have people who are, the mentality is there's one orthodoxy. And if you mouth off on Twitter or Facebook,
Yeah,
or
you're out.
something you said when you were 13 and they see it, when you're applying to college or when you're in college, if it's against orthodoxy, you're done.
Right.
And this is antithetical to the way in which this country was formed. This country was formed in part as a reaction to censorship and repression of thinking. And that's why, people say, what they're trying to do here is stop harmful this or harm from occurring. That's crap. You have an absolute right, actually, to commit murder. The problem is, you do. But the problem is, once you're caught, you're going to be punished and prosecuted, right?
No, wait a minute. That doesn't sound right. You don't have a right to commit
You
murder.
absolutely,
It's against the law.
Who's going to stop you? You can do it.
But that's not a right. A right is something guaranteed by law, isn't it?
Or maybe right's the wrong word. You can.
You have the option to do it.
Yeah, nothing. You have the option to do it, I should have said. But anyway, so and then the government and the people have the obligation to hold you accountable for doing something like that.
Fifth Avenue, Charles, we got a weed store.
Right. Many of them. It's not the first
That
one.
is really, come on now, you would have never ever seen that. And then why are Rick and Morty advertising weed? That's a cartoon. That can't be sanctioned.
I don't know.
I don't understand what the hell is going on, Charles.
Yeah. Well, so they similarly, and with the concept of speech, you need to encourage people. You need to protect speech, even speech that is dead wrong. You have a right to express something of you, and if it's wrong, you'll be corrected.
No matter how odious, Charles.
Well, you can't shout fire in a crowded theater,
Well,
that kind of stuff.
But matters of opinion, no matter how odious,
Right.
may be, that's freedom of speech.
Right.
I mean, you can't say it's my opinion that there's a fire in a crowded theater. But
Right.
you could say it's my opinion that I dislike this or that, or I like this or that, or what is this person?
Down that way.
Yeah.
And this is the other side of B. Albans. This was the.
Something's going on with my ears because sirens are sounding so loud.
They're right behind you.
I know, but. signs of the internet being able to,
That is too loud.
it's just making me crazy. There was some video came up about how they're going to use the Elon Musk brain chip to deal with tinnitus. And now I feel like I'm getting it. That was so loud.
But you see,
I have a ringing.
Well, I'll talk for a while while you try to get rid of that. So I don't know if on my Twitter feed, I encourage people. So I'm at Charles Martel, scrunched together, uppercase C, uppercase O.
And I'm sorry, this is a different phone. I don't have that programmed in today. I'll do that for next time.
That's all right. But so my Twitter feed has actually become very amusing, I think. A lot thanks to the people who contribute. There's two hilarious clips. Somebody put up a clip, I think it's from the movie Oklahoma, the musical
Oh,
Oklahoma.
yeah.
And they superimposed Elizabeth Warren's face on the female protagonist.
It's funny.
Talking about, I'm a Sioux, I'm a this, I'm a Comanche, and it really is very, very funny. Then there's another one, her in a pink outfit. And I'm sorry, at a certain point, it's not really very funny. I suppose Sam Kinison, when he got mad and back to school,
Screaming.
that was funny, right? But because you knew it was a comic, it was not, all right, class, can anyone explain
Right.
what happened in the Vietnam War? He goes,
Johnson was too much of a pussy, Say it, Sam!
really was hilarious.
Actually, Rodney Dangerfield discovered Sam Kinison.
Oh, is that right?
Because he used to have, first of all, he used to have a comedy club, which was good. And then he did, like, one of the first kind of HBO comedy specials was Rodney Dangerfield's Young Comedian. That was Bob Saget, Roseanne Barr, Sam Kinison.
But nobody likes to to hang around people who are just always angry. And Elizabeth Warren is one of these people who's just
Well, it's not an act with her.
No, she's angry and she's fighting, and so they had this one clip of her in a pink outfit gesticulating wildly.
Oh, I know. And somebody carries her out.
Yeah, one of those. Exactly. Somebody carries her out, and the tagline on my Twitter feed: "I haven't seen Elizabeth Warren this mad since she got the results back of her ancestors' DNA test."
Right.
That's pretty funny.
See, these people speed up and honk. What are you going to do? You're going to run everybody over?
The guy knew the ancient creed. But, we had plenty of time to jaywalk there.
I know, and that's the thing. He's going too fast.
Here's Elizabeth Warren. I'm mad about this. I don't care that you're mad. How many years left do you have on the planet? Why don't you find something to be happy about? Or are you mad about everything?
But why are all these people who are in government perpetuating the falsehood that this is going to end abortion? That they should be calming everybody down and saying, listen, let's just keep in mind that this brings it back to the people to allow your representatives in your state to speak on your behalf. And
to have a democratic process.
Right, that's just it. And they're not even saying, look, don't go to judges' houses. We want to take the high road. They go low, we go high. No, they don't. No matter what happens, if we don't get what we want, we're going to threaten violence, we're going to do violence, we're going to break the system if it doesn't give us results that we like. So Clarence Thomas came out and he said people have become addicted to getting outcomes that they like and that nobody is really able to deal with these...
Free takeout.
Yeah, with these unwanted outcomes. And I think, Charles, there's a lot of things going on. Remember, it's when you grew up, if you didn't come in first, you didn't get the trophy. In fact, even when I grew up, if you lost, we were the worst lacrosse team in Syosset. We didn't get a trophy for showing up and getting beaten up on the field. You lost. You learned something about life, that not everybody can win every time. And you got to try harder. But that's all gone away. It's like, no one's feelings can be hurt. You have to, they think they have some sort of a constitutional right to feel safe on Twitter. You don't.
Well, yeah, and honestly, in my business career, in my life, when I had...
You know what? We've lost your batteries. Hold that a second. You've gone silent there. This thing is dead batteries. See, that's the problem with me going deaf from sirens and trying to turn down this to help avoid. Let's hear you say something.
So here we are on
Yeah, that's
31st
fixed.
Street. Works?
Yes,
So you got it?
we're good.
Yeah. So I started to say that where I, in my view, have excelled is where I have gotten pushed past my comfort zone and had to either think on my feet or operate in areas where I have to sort of imagine what the right answer could be, or try something for the first time in a position of great responsibility. That's where when you're pushed, that's I think when you could fall flat and hit your face, of course, but that's when you can learn. And even when you fall flat on your face, hopefully not actually fall flat on your face, but when you make a mistake, that's when you learn. And I know
Yes.
in some of the bigger deals that I worked on with big multinational companies, when we got to a point where it didn't go as expected, it would be a contemplate your navel. What went wrong? What do we do wrong? How do we get to this place? How do we make sure this doesn't happen again? How bad is this mistake? You spend time learning from it.
Exactly.
And instead, take somebody like Kamala Harris. I mean, this is a person who really, if she had any self-respect, long ago would have said, I'm going to teach basket weaving or cooking or something. This is a person who has no fucking common sense when it comes to
no self-awareness.
No self-awareness. She can't read a crowd. She's a horrible public speaker.
Yes.
She thinking on
She's
her
like
feet.
a failure at everything.
Right, but she is the first African American, in theory, vice president.
That's
so that's her
bad.
first. And so she can cover herself in glory and list all her accomplishments. She's built a resume, or somebody's built a resume for her, but it lacks the key component I like to see in a resume. Not only did you get the title, but what did you do? What did you do with it?
Yeah.
What initiatives did you personally lead, and how much of a team did you inspire, and what lasting legacy did you leave behind? With her, it's just a litany of failures. Everything she's touched has turned to shit. Look at San Francisco, look at California, now look at the White House. I mean,
Well, the disinformation governance Mary Poppins lady gave a list of what is information and what is disinformation. And according to her, anybody who claims that Kamala Harris slept her way to the top, that's disinformation.
oh, come on.
That's what she
actually
said.
brought that up?
Yes.
This woman is hopeless.
Second bong store on Fifth Avenue.
Yeah, it used to be Fifth Avenue as the first National Bank and Trust, the second national, as first Bong and Distrust.
Yeah.
But I mean, she actually brought that up. I mean, that's
She
like,
did another TikTok video, and Mayorkas revealed that he had no idea she was publishing this stuff on TikTok. So a guy who's supposed to be in charge of an agency that's intended to uncover clandestine terrorist plans that seek to destroy the nation,
Right.
that are communicated
How
in
was I to
secret,
know?
doesn't even know that his own hire is publishing bullshit on TikTok.
it's
a
like
public thing.
In real life, I believe you spoke to the guy, Art Carney.
Yes.
And I believe in real life he's pretty intelligent. I could be wrong on that.
It's nice on the phone.
But as Jackie Gleason's sidekick in The
Yeah,
Honeymooners,
played a
he
dummy.
worked in the sewer, and
Right.
whoa, whoa, whoa.
What the hell is going on there? Oof.
Let's stay out of there.
Some things don't get on camera for a reason, Charles.
That's just.
Should we describe to the
no,
viewers what was
no,
just...
that's the zone. There's no good.
Oh,
will
this
come-
this dog's got the shoes sorted. Love the shoes. Whoop, sorry.
Yeah. But
This dog's jealous. He has no shoes.
where were we? But yeah,
Art Carney.
But Carney played the simpleton, who was really a simpleton, and at least in the show, and very, very funny. I mean, he always screwed everything up. That's Mayorkas. That's Dopey James Comey. That's Clapper. That's not Brennan. He's just an evil. I won't use the phrase on Mother's Day, but I would use a bad word.
Mother effer.
That's what I was coming to. Person effer.
Hawley called for Mayorkas to resign.
I don't think he should be resigned. I think he should be put into Gitmo.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy is, it's just, and I actually think, frankly, the Department of Homeland Security should be
Disbanded.
Disbanded, the Patriot Act, forget it.
Well, I think they should disband that and the FBI and start a new agency that, you know, you need somebody who knows more about this stuff than I do to sit down and really enumerate the deficiencies. Here's another thing that we should talk about, Charles. This was a good article you sent me that I also barely understood.
You're being
that
modest.
Russia has some new plan for a commodities-based rather than a debt-based,
Right.
and then using gold and other currencies as something. I didn't really fully understand that, but commodity-based sounded smart.
Right. So, when we think about the concept of inflation, what you're really doing is you're trying to think about items that humans need to purchase each week or each year or whatever, a basket of those things, and individual governments will make decisions that span across a responsibility or irresponsibility range. So some governments, like Turkey, will be completely irresponsible. This government will be largely irresponsible, and maybe in Switzerland and Singapore, they're going to be more responsible, trying to contain price surges by making sure that their own currency is sound. It's sound money. It's hard money. So before I got into the business of looking at GE, after I retired, now which is coming July 31st, it'll be 20 years in retirement.
Pretty good, Charles.
Which is, yeah, it's great. Yeah, I don't think I could there's any job that I could take at this point, because when you don't work for anybody else, you don't work at all for 20 years, it's got to
just become incompatible.
I think I'll go back to work. Nah. Anyway, one of the first things I started doing was looking into my family history and studying history, and then because we have a lot of records that talk about how much things cost and what people owned at certain points in time and what they left behind in wills, that caused me to think about, well, you know, what did everyday items cost going back in time? And there's a very good, interesting relationship between what people earned and what things cost. So when you go back and if you could trace your ancestry to somebody who, let's say, was living in 1200 AD, and then you look and see and mention that this person had given a grant of 60 marks to the king for something, and you think, well, that's chump change. The 60 marks is, I forget what the relationship is to pounds, but it's, you know.
But back in the day, that was real money.
People didn't have money.
Yeah.
You know, there were people, the mass of people had no money at all. And the people who had money, you know, a pound was a shit ton of money.
Huh. Well, that's why you had like shillings and 2 bits.
Well, I'm talking about 1200 AD, I'm talking way back when, when it was still feudal society.
I don't know when the bit was invented.
So, but in the more recently in the American West in the 1860s and 70s and 80s, we have records, and you know, you look at people who had. There's an entry that in 1860 odd, a double great grandfather, I think it is, or maybe it was just a great grandfather, double great grandfather, invested in a piece of machinery. It cost $75,000 in 1862.
Jesus.
That was a lot of money.
What was that?
It was gold mining. And that was just one of the things.
That's like billions today.
Not billions, but it'd be a lot of money. And you can go and you can look at, there's pretty good records on the price of, for example, gold.
What was an ounce of gold at that
Yeah,
time?
I was going to say, I want to say maybe it was, people will check and look, it could be like $4, $10.
Wow, you should have bought it then.
It'd be even better when you find it. This is what
We have
another
texting
ancestor
hands out
did.
there.
Another one found a lot of gold in 1864. So, so getting back to this question of inflation, you know, rather than getting up there and having one blowhard say to another person, okay, the script is going to be, with respect to Joe Biden's legislation, the effect of an inflation, it'll be transitory. And then everybody says transitory. And, you know, the Art Carney's sitting there saying, why are people talking about the subway system? You know, what does that mean anyway?
Yeah.
Somebody said it's transitory. What does that mean? Do you have to worry about it? Nope. Okay,
Yeah.
I won't worry about it. Now inflation's raging.
Of course.
So inflation, to me, I think there's one analysis you can do, or many you can do obviously, but one might be to simply say the stuff that you need water to live,
Right.
right, liquids, you need food, you need shelter. In this economy you need electricity. There's certain things you absolutely have to have, and you figure the weighting of how much of that is in the basket of what people buy each year, and you can game the system by constructing a basket that's not actually representative of the underlying cost. But so there's a little bit of
Oh yeah, you told me about this where they switch ground beef for steak and use
Right.
that as the measure.
right, and you invent things that you game.
Hang on a second here. We got a lot of yapping people standing very close behind
Right.
us.
Yeah, it's
It's
amazing
just
when
her, actually.
these younger people get together and they start talking at the top of their lungs about yes,
Very stupid.
Anyway, so you could do one analysis which says the stuff that people need. Here's this poor guy picking through garbage.
Smelling it, but he doesn't look homeless.
All right, he's bought some food.
He just took something out of the garbage and smelled it and put it back.
It's obviously, no need to wear a mask.
Well, Charles, here's the original home of...
That's what the
21st
sign
century
says there, right? Grunberg Realty, the original
Yeah,
home
they
of-
took it over while I was in there, and then 9/11 hit and the rent was going up and I moved out.
So the one analysis is you can say, how much you make after taxes, and you know how much stuff costs for an individual, for a couple with children,
Lamborghini.
and you can go over time and you can look at those relationships, and when you do that you can form a view, if the data is good, about whether the economy is improving or not improving. And
It's not.
it's a reverse, and as I've been saying in the very beginning, for somebody like me who, for example, is betting that prices will go up for commodities in his portfolio, inflation is good. But for somebody who has no portfolio and has to pay for gas at the gas pump and electricity, there's a story I read just before coming out. In the UK, people are turning off their stoves because they can't afford the electricity. The cost of electricity is rocketing upwards because of the ineffective and inefficient utility companies that are run by morons across the world, but especially in Europe.
Well, and that's the other thing that Lindsey Graham told Professor Hulk, that we have to ratchet up the sanctions on European oil. And there were some other news about
See, that's silly.
somebody else is, not taking Russian gas.
Well, you mean on Europe buying Russian gas, but
Yeah.
but the Obumbling, or whatever you want to call them, and others are saying that these high oil prices are good because it's now going to hasten the transition to renewable energy.
It's totally
And
wrong.
Those people really, just like you need a license to drive a car and you need a tougher license to be a taxi operator, you should not be allowed to make laws if you are that stupid economically.
The problem with this transition to renewable energy is that right now it is essentially,
It's a pipe dream.
well, no, it's a nascent technology that needs time to develop. And when you ask the people who are the most experienced and knowledgeable in it, like those
Who
who've
would
been
do that?
in the industry for 10, 15 years, like Elon Musk, he lays out, even if people hate him, I think he knows a lot about batteries and cars and charging the batteries and how many batteries you would need to replace X number of cars,
Right.
because this is what's holding his company back. And that's why they've just opened one of the largest factories in the world that's going to be the largest battery factory in the world. And he says that in whatever number of years he was talking about, this thing will produce about 1/10 of the number of batteries needed for whatever it is they were talking about.
Right.
And when you really go through it, in order for this plant, you can't just say, well, here's $3 billion and we're going to solve the problem. Elon Musk is just basically laughing at that, saying it's just nowhere near.
It's a pipe dream, is
It's
what I said.
in the current environment. And the idea that, some sort of immediate catastrophe like cutting off your access to the existing energy is going to somehow spur the industry. I mean, yes, eventually it will, but that's a shock that's going to have a real negative impact on a lot of aspects of life that haven't been calculated yet.
I wrote for the Washington Times a very, I found it amusing column from Bangalore, India. I was waiting for my car and driver, which is quite common over there for people to have cars and drivers, to pick me up, and downstairs on a chair, and I could see the sidewalk, and I saw this guy. I was reading a newspaper, and as I was reading this newspaper, I saw a guy come down the street whose legs were permanently like this, and like this, crossed.
How was he coming down the street?
And he was on his hands. He was
Oh my God.
he was on a pallet, and he was pushing himself on the pallet down the street.
Holy crap.
Smiling.
Wow.
And in the newspaper article I had been reading at the time was about some idiot in Austria who was denied disability. So because they told him he wasn't disabled, so he cut off his hand to get disability. So my article, I think, cut his hand or his leg or whatever. And so I framed the article contrasting those two approaches, that you would have somebody who was very down in his luck, let's put it this way, but nonetheless
smiling,
could appreciate that life is precious, and you only get the one chance, so you may as well try to get the most of it, and stop wallowing in your negatives, and look for opportunities with this other idiot who's like, I don't want to do anything. I'm not going to get
cut off your own hand. I mean, that is a sign of mental illness.
Right. Well, I think the people in the World Economic Forum are afflicted with mental illness.
Fart sniffing, what are they?
Buffoons.
Yeah. I like that insult, but I don't know where the fart sniffing comes in.
Well, you're stupid enough to do that.
It was like sitting around in a room.
Should we go going into the big game sanctuary, into the park?
Sure.
So we got to go down to Broadway, I think.
Sure.
Every time we go into the big game sanctuary, the wildlife can be scary, so
yeah,
we'll have to be on our P's and Q's going through here.
I was very troubled by what Lindsey Graham said, Charles. I'm sure
I'm very troubled by him.
Right, I'm sure Putin is watching, and he's saying we're going to open up. Here's what I wanted to tell you. So Lindsey Graham was saying that the Ukrainian people are defeating the Russian army in Mariupol. And there's that guy who sounds like he should be a bartender in Brooklyn, who's a general. I forget his name, but he's like, yeah, but Putin doesn't know what he's talking about. And he's losing, and Ukraine is doing this and that. But when you look at reporting from John Mark Dugan and definitely Patrick Lancaster yesterday was in Mariupol inside the Azovstal plant.
Wow, how do you do that?
Because he said that the Donbas People's Republic and Russian forces control this area now.
Wow.
Now the plant is huge, so there could still be Ukrainian forces in there, but this does not reflect what's being told to people on Fox and CNN, and it's emboldening people to support this notion that we're going to continue sending weapons and money into a region where it's really endangering the people there,
right,
and escalating the war and increasing the likelihood that more people, including people here, could be hurt or killed.
Right, and I mean, it's really shocking and sad to see the extent of propaganda being spread, lies being sold as truth on the mainstream media, and people who dare to ask questions being immediately called out as, you're a Putin stooge, you're a Russian spy. I mean, during the Iraq War, maybe we didn't listen enough. We didn't listen enough to critics, but it was the critics who were the heroes. And people would say something negative about Bush.
They were right.
They were right, but criticism was encouraged. Now you've got this guy. I mean, how can anyone actually believe that 81 million people voted for this doofus? I mean,
I don't know how anybody could believe virtually anything.
I think if you offered to pay somebody $100 to prove that they voted for Joe Biden, but to do it, they had to come on television and tell us your name and take the 100. I don't think you'd have many people coming forward and saying, I was stupid enough to vote for that moron. Isn't that the...
No, that's not. That is the Ukrainian symbol. The Azov Brigade looks different than that. I'm not sure exactly what that symbol is, but that is an official Ukrainian symbol. You just reminded me, Charles, the Dinesh D'Souza put out his movie about 2,000 Mules.
Right.
And now his critics are saying that the cell phone data that he used to make these determinations is not conclusive and inaccurate, and therefore his conclusions are wrong.
I think
now, I'm not going to say if that challenge to D'Souza is right or wrong, but it is interesting that, again, nobody has brought up the criticism that David Hawkins has raised, which frankly is bulletproof, in that it's just asking what Dominion Voting's own patent was used to do. It doesn't rely on any outside evidence or data. There is no question that Dominion Voting Systems owns this patent, created this patent, and what it does is written right in there. It's called electronic
switching
correction of voter marked paper ballots. And the only legal question that needs to be asked is, how many times was this software routine invoked? How many paper ballots were electronically changed? Nobody has asked that question.
Right.
And you would not be able to say anything other than answer it.
Well, you do know that Joe Biden has a competing movie.
What?
2,000 Drools.
Yeah.
That's basically, I'd say he probably does that in a given day.
Right. He could also have 2,000 ghouls,
Fools.
which are the people working for 2,000 fools,
Right.
2,000 ghouls. He's giving $131 billion to some unknown number of schools, and that's way too much money. John Cullen did a breakdown where he said, okay, Burj Khalifa cost 1.1 billion, so we could make 120 whatever Burj Khalifas. Like, what are they going to do with all that money?
Again, this is the classic business model for scamming. And on that, I don't know, we haven't talked about it. Maybe you didn't notice this, or maybe you did, but in the last several weeks, Joe Biden has met with Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. Ron Klain met with Hillary Clinton. And meanwhile, Durham is making progress, and one wonders exactly why these people are meeting, what they're talking about, or how are they comparing notes.
They're saying we need a war right now, so
Right, to
that
distract.
something way more important takes all this away.
Right, and so let's hope nothing awful happens tomorrow. Boy, this used to be real estate brokerage, no?
I think so. Jeez.
But let's hope we don't wake up. Let's hope we do wake up tomorrow, but then when we do, we don't appreciate that portions of the United Kingdom are no longer part of the earth.
Yeah, so Putin said that this May 9th parade is going to be, or the
Scaled
news,
back.
the news said that Putin said it's going to be nuclear themed.
Right. Well, if you're going to, I mean, to me, if you're going to be meddling in another country's battles, you'd probably be wise not to brag about it, particularly before you know the outcome. I mean, people correctly made fun of George Bush for the mission accomplished aircraft carrier landing when we had hardly succeeded at that point.
Anything.
And similarly, to start taking victory laps for what you're doing behind the scenes in a place where you're not supposed to be, where the American people have not authorized any sort of military action, seems most unwise and tempting fate.
To boast about providing intelligence that helps sink 2 ships.
Right, and you just admit, so Russia could say, all right,
You're in the war.
You're in the war. And
Your first lady went to go visit. I mean, how are we not in the war?
And what was she
Sending
thinking
money?
going to Romania and bringing a 5-gallon tub of ketchup? That's the best you can do?
That's just so stupid. I don't think they need ketchup that much.
Right.
Look at this mess.
It's like when Barack Obama went to, I think, the state visit to England, he gave the Queen, I think, was it a book on tape or something that was either an iPad or was something that was not configured for use in UK current, and
that's funny.
A list of his speeches. I'm the Frito Bandito, And here's nice Grace Church, calm, but with a security guard out front, which is unusual.
Well, because probably they put out the word that there's going to be a big deal on Sunday, and then they attack on Saturday and do nothing on Sunday, so all this security is arranged, money is wasted, and whatever they wanted to get into yesterday, they did.
I think we're not far away, and maybe we'll go there and then finish in the park or near the park, from the church they did terrorize.
Oh yeah, right. Let's go over there.
Top of Mulberry Street. So we'll just keep going down here and then make a left. But yeah, this is, as I've told you before, there used to be a very large tree, and one or more trees where that small tree is now. So it's a lot lighter here than it was when I was a kid. Scaffoldings everywhere, garbage everywhere.
Yeah.
Can collectors. That's a serious number of cans.
Yep.
I'm surprised there aren't more bandits who figure out where the can collectors are based and just drive up in a truck and say, thanks for collecting these cans.
Yeah, it's a lot of material to carry around for 5 cents at a time.
Right, but just put it in a stolen van.
I think Kramer and Newman tried that one time, and the economics didn't work, Jerry.
Isn't that the one where the fire started or something?
I don't know. They tried to use the mail truck to drive cans to Michigan to get 10 cents for the 5 cent.
Well, and he, I think that was very funny. That show. I wonder how much marijuana was consumed.
I wouldn't be surprised if Seinfeld is anti-weed.
Well, I think it would be Larry David who was the writer there, right?
Those guys strike me as not being too weed. You never know.
I gotta believe.
You never know. What about this person who attacked Dave Chappelle, and now they said that it's just a misdemeanor to attack somebody with a deadly weapon? He had a knife.
Well, I think what you're learning here is there is no good reason to go to California. There's no good reason to come here to New York.
That's what I mean. There's just no law and order. What are people who are law-abiding citizens supposed to do? You're not allowed to have a gun in New York legally.
Right.
And by the way, if you used it, they definitely be like, "Ooh, white guy shoots anybody. Let's prosecute him."
Right, bury him. So how about, we won't dwell on the password, we brought it up in the beginning, but what is Hunter Biden going to do today? Who's he going to visit?
Well,
thankfully, he doesn't have to visit Jill.
Oh, Mother's Day, you mean?
She's in Ukraine.
Well, it's not his mother, really.
Well, but raised him.
Yeah, that's true.
And then you've got...
I think he says he likes Jill, right?
Hunter? Then there's this Scott McIsaac, I guess, is the guy who's
suing them now.
And he's got a book coming out momentarily, and
it's very dramatic, the excerpt that they published.
Right, but he claims that Hunter walked in to the shop and the alcohol fumes preceded him. And
I don't think this guy wrote the book.
Well, but the point is, if you're that fucked up that you're drinking so much alcohol that you reek of alcohol
while you're doing errands, like bringing in your laptop,
that's not good. You really need treatment.
Yes.
And the fact that the father would be so selfish as to continue a career in supposedly in politics, where he had evidence of so many problems in his family. From Hunter to Bo to the various
daughters,
daughter-in-law. This is a completely dysfunctional and therefore useful if you're a crook family.
Right.
And where are the people thinking about that and commenting about that? You should have some compassion, I suppose, for the predicament. But when you then realize that they've been exploiting Joe's connections, and that Joe could say that Hunter Biden's the smartest person he knows, therein lies the problem. If that's the smartest person you know, that explains quite a bit.
You need to meet some people.
Goofy, Goofy, the cartoon character, is smarter than this Hunter Biden.
This is new, Captain Cookie.
And the milkman.
I mean, is that what we need? Is an entire thing dedicated to cookies? I don't believe that could sustain.
I don't see that as a real barn burner.
Now wait, that's new. Pizza. The Donut Pub is open, and pizza. That looks like a pizza mess. That doesn't make me want to eat pizza. That makes me. They could put that on a car wash as the ad.
Yeah, this corner is one where there typically are a lot of homeless people. I don't know, today they may not be here.
Well, this is NYU.
It's not intelligent. Right next to the subway station. but typically you have a lot of homeless people in here at night. Right next to your old,
Yeah, this is 721 Broadway. You're not even allowed in there anymore without a,
what?
well, whatever biometric thing NYU is giving you now. But I came to see an old film professor a few weeks ago, and I was standing outside, and he came outside, and he said, "Why didn't you meet me inside?" And I said, "I presumed I wouldn't be allowed in." And he said, "Yeah, you wouldn't." I was like, "Why did you ask?" NYU bookstore is closed. That's got to be just for Sunday.
Yeah. So,
I was also watching Jake Tapper. Oh yeah, this is what I wanted to tell you about. I think we spoke about this walking up, but we haven't spoken about it here during the broadcast. Gillibrand.
oh my God.
Kirsten Gillibrand is now saying that she wants to bring perjury charges against what's his name, Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett.
She's a moron.
Basically alleging that what they said to the Senate during their confirmation, was a lie. And if you listen to it, those people were judges, they were lawyers. Those kind of people speak very carefully.
Right.
And if they, what I heard was them saying like, this is precedent, etc. And you brought up the point that you're not allowed to ask
How would you
a
rule on
candidate
this
how
issue?
they would rule on something. Right. The other thing that's notable that I didn't know about until I started looking into Gillibrand is that she was a big supporter of Valerie Caproni, the federal judge who came under fire during her confirmation hearings. Questions about these exigent letters that the FBI was using to obtain what was determined to be illegal wiretaps to spy on people. Gillibrand was a huge supporter of Caproni when she was, during that confirmation process.
Long pants were made for this.
And I think Kirsten Gillibrand is an extremely ignorant person.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's just a caricature of a senator, frankly. I mean, she was very ardently supported by Bill Clinton, and her father, I think, was tied to that Nexium cult one way or another, and
Not surprising.
very happy to make big deal out of Harvey Weinstein, who should be in prison.
Right.
But then when it comes time to making noise about Clinton, she's just silent. So she's basically fully bought and paid for reliable moron.
I don't know if you remember that time a few years ago that I
Cheery
approached
thing
her.
on Mother's Day. I want to walk around with a black balloon. I think this person is being filmed.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Let's cross. The smell of marijuana was too much for. It's probably some French art crew.
No, that was an expensive camera they had.
I know, I'm just saying, it's probably some French art crew. They're making a movie about black balloons on Mother's Day.
But when I spoke to Kirsten Gillibrand at that event,
You were impressed?
no, she was just dumb. One of those people that you speak to right away and you're like, "Are you on drugs?" She's like, "Who are you with?" How does that
I'm with stupid.
affect the question?
I'm with stupid, namely you.
I'm one of your constituents. What's the difference who I'm with? I'm here alone. That's a stupid question.
Right. Well, I'm a senator. I'm one of 100 senators. You have to treat me with respect.
What does that woman do day to day that's improving anything about anything?
Nothing.
I really think that we should have an opportunity to audit these representatives and be like, bring your kid to work day and sit there and be like, what the hell exactly do you do?
Well, or alternatively, Prime Minister's questions. I'm sure you've seen that.
I don't know.
In the UK, the Prime Minister has to appear before Parliament and answer questions. No, you don't get the questions in advance, and the questions are rough. They're not like, how much good did you try to do today? It's like, will the Prime Minister please explain why he was drinking? And it's right, really tough and pointed questions designed to make you look stupid. And it's quite interesting to watch.
Well, they're designed to make you look stupid. What happens if you already are stupid?
If you stupid fits the bill. Now I think, why don't we go to bleaker I think this we'll get to Mulberry here, and I think this church is not far away from here. But if we go left on Bleecker, we'll see if there's anybody in front of the famous headquarters. Yeah, we're close. Wait.
It does seem quieter
Very
than
quiet.
past weekends. This is some sort of chauffeur-driven Mercedes.
I think in the main, people are in shock. I mean, you paid your holiday bills, or you're trying to pay your credit card, but your interest rates are going up on your credit cards. They may be adjusting on your mortgage. You're discovering maybe your credit lines are being pulled. You're going to the supermarket and stuff that used to cost $5 per item is now $7.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, what is going on here? And then you get a notice from your employer saying, well, look, we got to cut back your hours, or you're fired. And if the markets continue to tumble, but when people who can't check the value of their holdings on a daily basis because they're in some plan and they get a statement every, let's say, quarter, they're going to discover that they thought they had X, and now
and it
they
went
have
way down.
Now they've got 0.85X, and the next time it'll be 0.65X, and so it's only a fool, only Biden and company would try to pretend that this, quote, recovery is the strongest recovery in American history. I mean, first of all, when it comes to a recovery does not mean you go back to the job that you used to have.
Right.
That is not creating a job.
Get paid the same amount while everything is 15% more.
Right, that's not a recovery. That's just going back to where you were. In investing, you have what's called a high watermark. And that's if your stock, let's say your portfolio is worth $100,000, that's the high watermark, and it goes down to 90 or 60, let's say, in 1 year, and the next year it goes up to 80.
Yeah.
You don't get paid a performance fee for getting
Right.
below the high water. You got to get back to the high water mark.
Before it's but that's not how Joe Biden does math.
Joe Biden. So the church is right down this Mulberry Street.
Yeah,
there.
and that's that Uncle Bud, I think.
Yeah, and over there, maybe we'll just go down Mulberry and we'll come back to the.
Charles, Uncle Bud is giving Weed World a run for its money.
And then Joe Biden's version is Uncle Dud.
Uncle Dumb.
I think we could probably go.
Unless we get some motorcycle racing Fast and Furious person or this lady in the crosswalk trying to kill people.
So down here, I think, is the church where that disturbance occurred. It was the Basilica of St. Patrick's Old Cathedral. Is, I think, either 63 or 436 Mulberry Street, which is probably up this way.
What language were those two guys just speaking? They were
wasn't-
very interested in my equipment. No pun intended. This thing hanging around my
We are
neck.
in the village.
Right.
I don't know, Jason.
I told you, Charles, that somebody finally came up with something I envisioned when this awesome 32-bit recorder came out. Somebody has made one the size of a pack of cigarettes.
Wow.
I gotta get it. But it's not out yet. Well, where is this church? I
right
remember
over here,
those
I think.
guys were standing here.
Yeah, I think it was people from that church who were proselytizing.
Yeah, and they did not approach us. There is a radical Jewish extremist who is apparently a viewer of the show and dissatisfied
Only one?
with my level of Jewishness. So he writes to me wanting to reprimand me, to indoctrinate me, to do what he thinks I should be doing.
It's Colin Kaepernick.
That's Sideshow Bob.
Who's that?
Sideshow Bob.
Who's that?
From The Simpsons, he's friends with Krusty the Clown.
That guy is actually the character, or?
No, but that's the most Sideshow Bob looking human I've ever seen in real life.
He
And then
also-
there's another dog with designer shoes going on.
This dude also looks like Colin Kaepernick.
Yes, but more like Sideshow Bob.
All right. So this is Mulberry Street, and to think that I saw it on Mulberry Street.
Wait a minute, what is REI Co-op?
It's my kids told me about it. It's exchange.
Is every REI a co-op?
I don't know, but it's
It's a mountain climbing store.
all
but,
kinds of, like, it's not just mountain climbing. It's other sporting goods.
Yeah, no, it's a very good store, but I didn't realize it was a co-op.
Yeah, it is. Go on. Okay, here. This is 290. How can?
So where is the church, though? Is that
Is
it over
that
there?
right there?
Must be.
I thought it was 4 or something. What is the name of it? Cathedral.
Here's the new Bronco. I don't know. And it's the press, so they must be, they're parked on the sidewalk, so something important is happening. This cost Ford over $1 billion to develop.
This thing?
Yeah. And this asshole parked it on the sidewalk.
Yeah. St. Patrick. Yeah, this is it.
Looks like something's going on.
I think
A lot of
this
people
is it.
eating here. Let's see. What do
St.
we got?
Patrick Youth Center. I think this is the church.
And then isn't the Planned Parenthood right around here?
It's around up that way.
What is going on? Should we? That looks like not a protest. There's people going to church.
Yeah.
Anything going on at the church? Anything going on at the church?
Yeah. Those
Yeah,
are
those people are not having anything
exactly
to do with it. They're just
switched
eating
in.
lunch.
They're not exactly switched on.
Well, it doesn't seem like there's really that much going on, Charles.
Knights of Columbus.
They're living it up with the Knights on Broadway.
This is a nice old Catholic church.
The whole notion that you're going to come and protest at a Catholic church because of something that the Supreme Court is doing is just stupid.
Well,
It's just disruption.
I don't think that, this is the intellectual dream team at work here.
How you doing?
Let's see, we'll walk across and see what that says. Yeah. Basilica.
Batman is here.
It's better than it should be.
This is it.
So here's the entrance. Maybe
Green
this-
door past the gate. Which must be this, which is closed.
Well, it's very ancient looking, this gate.
Right here it says entrance.
Well,
I'd say let's go
Sure.
back and then go up to the past Hunter's Gallery and into the park. And
I'm pleased that there's no disruption going on
Don't
here, Charles.
say
I was
it.
annoyed to see that disgusting crackhead Barney. I would really like to know her name so that I can
I would really
pursue her
not.
legally. That
Really-
idiot Dan Christ admitted to me that he was having sex with her,
Ugh.
which is odd
Was
because he was posing as an ally to the New York freedom fighters, where that woman shows up all the time at their events and agitates. So, I mean, it just provided evidence for the presumption that there are infiltrators there who are trying to disrupt those events that the New York freedom fighters are putting together.
Right.
And I think the police know them and are allowing that to happen for whatever reason. They certainly did nothing when I was accosted by that idiot Leroy Press.
Yeah. A lot of idiots on the other team.
Nothing but.
Keep going this way. No.
Oh, this way? Yeah.
We're going to go down to the center of the park.
Sure.
And then
Well, what else is
nice
on your
long
mind,
walk.
Charles?
Well, as I
Let's see
said,
if people have comments for you.
I think there's increasing. Oh, I have one thing to say, which is that somebody approached me from the Epoch Times and informed me that colleagues have put together a database where they've taken publicly available summaries relating to the Mueller investigation from that have been put out on the FBI vault file, and they're putting it into a searchable database. And they asked me to confirm whether something they found was a digest of the interview that occurred on December, as it turns out, 11th, 2018. And lo and behold, it's there, and my name is not there, and the bulk of the interview is redacted, but the summary of it is 8 typed pages. And
Wow.
it lasted for over an hour, the interview. And that brings me to share some comments that our good friend Fabien Chalandon
We should
had.
have him back on
What?
soon. We should have him back on
Yeah,
soon.
well, he's made a move to a new country.
Oh,
and
right.
He's sifting through a lot of stuff. And
Well, obviously, if
I've already
he's
said
only
the invitation,
interested.
but what he explained is that in France, which of course is not in the United States, in France the way the process works is you don't allow the FBI equivalent to write a summary of what happened
Right.
that the person being interviewed hasn't seen. You write it up, and then the
Because
person
they can write whatever they want.
right, and they begin all these interviews saying it's a federal crime to lie to an FBI officer, but it's not a crime for the FBI to lie to you.
Or to lie about what you said.
Right. And so that needs to be changed.
Yeah, it does. The FBI should be abolished. It's dysfunctional at best
Right.
and a detriment to our safety at worst.
But in that case, what I was saying, and I think what people are getting to understand now, judging by the comments in the press and elsewhere, when I met with the FBI, it was because there were stories circulating about Peter Smith involving me, where I questioned whether Peter Smith actually committed suicide, and I had my doubts. And there were stories speculating about my connection to Peter Smith and whether I was providing money to Peter Smith to do what he might have been doing, maybe allegedly with Mike Flynn, and whether I was the person who went over to try to meet with Julian Assange and all this kind of stuff. And I was able in the interview to begin it, just take the wind completely out of their sails and say, look, before we get into too many details, here's my only passport. I only have one passport. Take a look at it. You'll see I have
Never went.
Well, I haven't been outside the country since June 2012.
Right.
Because that's when I found out that my ex-wife had potentially inoperable cancer, and I decided that I would stay close to home until the situation was sorted out. And
Charles, do you remember who was participating in the interview?
I have it written down somewhere.
No. Our interview when Shane Harris called you and this whole Peter Smith thing first came about.
George Webb.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that sounds like
And what I've been doing is posting lots of evidentiary videos created by his brother,
Right.
an individual who's made numerous public statements against his own interest about a family history of medically diagnosed and pharmaceutically treated schizophrenia, which is hereditary, and he's done a number of things, public behavior, that causes me to believe he's mentally ill and a danger to me, to my associates, to the
Right.
people around him. And I've been posting videos of some of these things, and he is just so
Right.
energetically making efforts to get these videos deleted.
Right.
If people go to Odyssey and search for, I think CIA Dave will bring it up,
Right.
but people can see these things that they were saying, and I'm becoming increasingly convinced, Charles, that you were a target of the Mueller investigation and that these people were talking about, whether they actively realized it or not, were playing a role in trying to entrap you.
Well, possibly.
And part of the reason why they're after me now is because their effort to entrap you has failed, and they realize that I possess all this evidence that if we do have justice and proper law enforcement,
Right.
we'll put them all in jail.
Right. So, but just staying for a second on what I'm sorry to focus on me, but just staying on what I was trying to accomplish in that interview. I was trying to get these people to understand the potential motivations that folks had to stop Trump from getting elected, and then once he was elected, to stop him from being able to function effectively. And I kept trying to steer them back to the Clinton Foundation and to the failed FBI investigation of the Clinton Foundation, the fact that there is...
But they were interested in framing you. They didn't
just
want
let
to
me
hear
finish.
about
Let me
that.
finish. And what was interesting is they would, the first time I did it, they tolerated, they asked me a question, and I spent 5 minutes talking about the Clinton Foundation, and they cut me off by saying, listen, we just don't have, or this investigation is not authorized to go
Right.
into that area. And I said, well, then it's never going to work, because you're not going to find out the truth of what
Right.
happened. And so they'd ask me a different question, and I'd try the same thing. And increasingly, they began to get irritated with me. And I could tell, there's a point at which you stop pushing. But I did get my points in, which is, I suspect, why a lot of this thing is redacted. because
they don't want people
this-
to see that evidence in
'cause
an
it-
FBI report.
Well, these reports are public now,
Right.
right? And they wanted to make so for Durham and those people, you are not going to have a legitimate report here unless you get into the degree to which fake charities like the Clinton Foundation, like the Biden Foundations, like the Bush Foundations, and many others are used as collection mechanisms to launder dirty money for political influence. That's why you create these things. And a precedent was set with the HW and W Bush Foundations, and then with the Clinton Foundation, and now with the Obama Foundation. I don't know what Trump's going to be able to do, but the precedents were set that the paperwork can be abysmal, the reports can be completely defective, and because nobody's going to challenge them, they stand out there as precedents for, we'll go on the cross, okay, as precedents for future presidents to do what they want, to use these vehicles to enrich themselves and their families. And that's the story that does need to get told and is being told. And the fact that they've tried to cover this up for so many years is not always going to work. There will come a moment where it will no longer be possible to cover this up. And then folks are going to go back over this ground and say, now, wait a minute. A lot of people got very close to the heart of the issue. You know, Goodman and Ortel did 600 or 550 videos on the subject.
You told the FBI directly about it, and they
Right.
just obstructed it.
Right, and they just said, we wouldn't want to know about that. That would explain
It's
the
not
problem.
even a matter of ignoring it. They are actively covering it, disrupting it.
Right, and here we have, this is on Mother's Day. Maybe I'll go in, my mother's not around anymore, but what better present on Mother's Day?
Oh, the door is
But
open.
we don't want to go in.
I just want to stand outside.
What better present than a nice hunter? A nice piece of artwork.
You don't know where I could find Hunter Biden, do you? Okay, thanks.
What did he say?
He said, no, I don't. Look, a pregnant person.
He's there. He's in there. This is where he would be living if he weren't the son of the president. It's probably where he lives as the son of the president in one of the
I don't know if
garbage
people
people.
realize this is one of the swankiest neighborhoods in Manhattan
Obviously.
with an open garbage dump.
Right.
Right in it.
Obviously. The people who, there are people who are actually competent. Here's somebody on the street
Competent at what?
who are experts in evaluating art and can say this is really an important piece of art, and with credibility. This is important for these reasons, and this is unimportant and a joke for these reasons. But
That dude just spit and said something rude.
I long ago, call me stupid, I got out of the business of listening carefully to what homeless people have to say about anything.
Well, I was just looking at him because when, I forget that guy's name, I think you might have introduced me to him. He was doing something with horses, but I was watching a lot of veterinary videos about this
Hector?
problem. Hector, exactly. And it was saying that when the horses were banging their heads into the wall in the way that guy just
I want
was,
to go that way.
that it was a sign of mental distress.
There are quite a few. I'm no expert on mental distress,
That
but,
guy was experiencing it, I
Right.
think.
and he's in his happy mode.
Jason, Charles.
Hi.
Hi,
And
how are you?
A fan.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. Are you having Morgenstern's
Yes,
finest?
we
Is
love
it-
this place.
Thank you.
Is it good?
Oh, it's the best
Charles
ice cream
doesn't
in the
like
city.
ice cream, but I will have to try it.
Please do, yes, yeah.
Well, thank you for stopping us.
Yeah. Well, I'll watch this later tonight or tomorrow morning.
And you're in it.
I know.
Good.
Wonderful. Happy Mother's Day if you're a mother.
Love the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Have a
Thank
nice
you.
day.
That's funny.
There you go, Charles. That's great.
That's a positive interaction.
Well,
That means
because
we're about to get a bucket of shit dumped on our
no,
heads.
that makes me feel much better than any of these idiots. And the bottom line is, when you interface with real people, it's vastly different than the crap that fake named accounts are giving online. And I mean, it takes me back to Elon Musk, just his desire to verify people who are contributing and commenting and participating
Right.
on social media.
I don't think you should have necessarily or encourage everyone to comment anonymously. I think it's
Shouldn't
better.
be allowed.
Well, because I think you should care what you say, and there needs to be
Stand by it.
right, and you need to be prepared. That's why I made a decision in exposing GE. I thought maybe I should perhaps do it anonymously because I'm just one dude, and when I got into it, GE had a total value of its equities $400 billion, and its debt was $550 billion. So it was almost $1 trillion pile of junk, actually. But that pile of junk had the ability to hire lawyers, and
Right.
in the end, as part of what I did, they had to spend $200 million on lawyers and $50 million on a settlement with the SEC, and they're
Wow,
still
but not
in
a
trouble.
single one of them sued you because they knew you were right.
Couldn't successfully do it, but and it's actually quite dangerous to do that. If you're a publicly traded company, somebody has a legitimate complaint, and your approach is to try to bury them, you get in bigger trouble if you do that.
That's right.
And really, the IRS and the SEC and others count on members of the public to speak up. There are not enough. There are never going to be enough regulators.
Agents, right.
But on the other hand, if you can encourage members of the public who have an interest in markets and how they function, and in whether people are paying taxes properly, you encourage them, give them incentives, whistleblower payments, to come forward and voice their concerns. That helps, in theory. Doesn't help Joe bite me. But, I mean, do you see his comments, I guess it was 2 days ago?
About MAGA being the most dangerous thing?
Yeah, you're an extremist if you don't support him. MAGA being the most dangerous terrorist operation in the world, in American history rather, and bragging. He gets up there and he's saying, under my watch, the world has 15 fewer democracies.
Yeah, that he
Like-
obviously didn't mean, but
Well,
wait, what is this? Did we see this before?
Yeah, we did before. The Center for Architecture, K through 12. This is for kids.
If
The-
kids made that, that's amazing.
Oh, young kids are really good making models.
I like this kind of thing.
I'm sure
Making
you-
models out of cardboard boxes.
sure.
And
There's a
toothpicks.
helicopter.
Where?
There.
Oh yeah, look at that. Pretty cool. Now what about this drone swarm going through the forest in China?
Well, it's inevitable, and you wonder, why wouldn't the approach be, if money's no object and you've got a bunch of slaves working in a province in China, why wouldn't you have the slaves make 1 billion drones?
I don't know if they have the technical expertise. I would expect that's probably a technology that gets licensed from somebody. Although actually, China is cutting edge with drones. DJI
Right.
is the guy who started it, is the first drone billionaire, and it's all Chinese.
So, but my point is, if money's no object, why wouldn't, as a first step in an attack, why wouldn't you send against the White House drone after drone against the windows, and then
it doesn't really work that way.
well, it's a projectile going at a window.
Yeah, but they don't have the kind of kinetic energy the thing to worry about with that is communications and spying, and for the larger ones, the ability to carry pathogens. I mean, those drones that they discovered, there was a video, I can't remember if this was Patrick Lancaster or somebody had a video of Russian troops who had captured a Ukrainian facility that had
Careful.
all of these, not military looking, but also not consumer, sort of the type of professional sized drones we were using for, IMAX movies and stuff like that, that had a reservoir that could hold like a liter of fluid, and they were speculating that it would be used, and it had a spray nozzle.
Sure.
They were speculating that it could be used to spray biological agents. And then that's the other thing that Lindsey Graham said to Professor Hulk. He said that Putin is getting ready to use chemical
Again,
or nuclear.
I mean, Lindsey Graham is so far past his sell-by date.
But no. That means the United States is going to do that and then blame it on him, because that's what they've
Right.
done so many times, or someone
Right.
will do that.
But just back on the drone thing, if you were to take, for example, a baseball, right, and hurl a baseball at this pane of glass, it may or may not break it. But if you hurl 1,000 at it, you're going to break that pane of glass.
It's not the strategic way something like that would be deployed, I don't think. It's more of a danger of...
Speaking of skirballs, throw a baseball, a skirball.
Yeah, I don't know what that skirball
That's
is.
the guy's name,
This
Jack
is the center.
Skirball.
No, I know, and he's some big NYU...
I went to something, they have these special
Yeah.
a special auditorium with these gadgets where you can dial your reaction to
Oh, yeah, you
something,
told me, and it didn't work.
It didn't work. You know, we're sitting there and you give all these instructions, do this, do that, make sure you don't do this, that. None of it works.
Right.
Well, we're not going to use any of
Well,
this, but thanks for coming down here.
It could go into government.
Yeah.
Spend a lot of money on something.
Oh,
that
there's the
doesn't work.
policeman.
Perhaps the cops. So his Yaris almost got crashed into.
Is that like a Tuckus?
That is a tiny little Toyota. I think it's a
It
Toyota.
can't be that comfortable to be sitting out in this weather and reading. It's kind of cold.
Well, if you got the fleece on, it's not bad.
Windy.
Do we have maniacs today? It's a fair concentration of maniacs.
I think it's likely. People
But Charles, I've
clandestine.
become very convinced that that first meeting with you was part of an operation to try to position you in the Mueller investigation, similar to what was done to Jerome Corsi.
Sure.
And I say this because there's a certain number of guests who remain on Crowdsource the Truth who attract the attention of a certain particular group of idiots. And as I go back, and particularly now that I'm looking more at this evidence that I've been storing for years and now publishing, and now George's brother is doing everything he can think of to try to get rid of it, I think it's much more important than just displaying what an idiot George's brother is. I think there's evidence in there of what they've been trying to do, and I'm getting closer to a point where hopefully they can be brought to justice.
That's good. We don't have the dirty feet Asian woman
Are you
dancing.
sure?
I don't see her. Generally, she's right here.
No, she's given way to the weed market. It's
In the
far
rag
more
market.
lucrative.
God almighty.
Yeah, it's just
Going right, as Jackie Gleason
Park
would
is a
say,
mess.
right down the turlet.
yeah.
Funny the way little kids run with their feet going.
Yeah.
And they are quick. You see how quick she is?
Yeah, the mother took a minute to, oh, and she just licked the concrete. Why are you doing that? Yes, exactly. Little kids are just like, what is the absolutely worst? Oh, look at that.
What? Oh, drone, yeah. Not supposed to have one in the
you're
park.
not allowed to do that, fly that around people. Who's flying it?
Where is the guy flying it?
That's what I'm asking. We're going to find out.
Is he?
It's flying over there. They want us to walk away and not find out who it is. So see, this is what I'm talking about.
That's you
It's
know.
dangerous.
But isn't that illegal?
Yeah, absolutely. $10,000 fine right there from the FAA.
Where? So I mean, how is the person controlling that? How does that person have line of
You've
sight?
got video on it.
Well, how-
You see the video on the controller.
right, but where is the person? I mean, is
I would presume they're over there because as soon as I got it on camera, it went high up in the air and down over there, and that person's now on their way because they know that if I'm somebody who's interested in finding out who's operating it, they're already on their way out of the park.
right? Yeah, I don't like that.
And by the way, if you did anything to disrupt it, so a lot of people are, hang on.
Put him on the spot. You gotta put him on the
So there's a lot of people, Charles, who think that if the drone flies into your backyard, you can now shoot it
No,
with a
you
gun.
can't.
Right, because it's an aircraft.
Let's let
and
these guys go.
but we got this thing too. Laws that pertain to the destruction of aircraft apply to those. So, and by the way, your property is the ground that your house is on, not the airspace above the ground. So technically the drone is not on your property. And if you destroy it, you could be charged by the FAA with the federal crime of destruction of an aircraft.
They should change that rule. You should be able to, when you own land, you should own a certain number of feet above.
Well, I'm not advising you to do this, but there are various microwave transmitters that you could obtain that could disrupt the operator's connection to the drone, and you wouldn't technically be destroying it, and electromagnetic weapons don't really leave any trace. So if something happens and a gust of wind blows it out of the sky and it crashes,
Something happens perchance.
that's not really your fault.
Yeah.
And I'm not advising anyone to do anything based on that, but there are a lot of counter-drone measures that you can get. What should be happening there is that there should be constantly a minimum number of law enforcement personnel, whether that's NYPD officers,
There was a
NYPD traffic,
there was a truck
parks.
right there.
Yeah, but it's not patrolling the park. It's not doing anything to deter crimes. And each and every time you and I go there, we witness multiple crimes without fail. And when I participate in the community meeting with the police, it's clear to me that it's being run by a very political person who is either the wife of a politician, they're friends with that guy Brad Holloman, who
Right.
has got all kinds of stupid policies that he's passing. But the police captain of the 6th Precinct said that the cops are doing an excellent job over there, that they've arrested 38 people in the past X number of months. And I told him on the call, I said, dude, I was just in there earlier today. There were 38 people you could have arrested today, and the cops are doing nothing. And now we've got more video evidence of the cops doing nothing. Yeah, definitely take that. We don't want that. What, that guy's cracking the litter problem, Charles. That lunch bag is not going to litter this
Well,
neighborhood.
it's not in a plastic container.
Charles, we're living in a broken city, in a broken
Existing.
country.
We're not living, we're existing.
Yeah.
This is
Now what's this? Girls, girls, girls. Fitness.
so we got a rugged week ahead of us.
Everything is just getting worse.
Well, we'll have to see. They're trying to humiliate Putin and suggest that he's losing, and anything that happens tomorrow in Russia be a disaster. I was asked a bunch of questions by Katya for Sputnik, which will appear shortly.
They're pushing this story that Putin is ill.
Yeah, but I mean the questions. I think I forwarded them to you. You maybe didn't have a chance to read them from the Tehran Times.
I saw them.
The questions are pretty pointed. And here's
Just,
a guy.
do you think Trump is going to win? Do you think
No,
Biden
it
is
is-
losing his mind?
Right, here's a guy zealously guarding the garbage. Gotta protect that garbage. Wouldn't want that to get messed up. This is really sad because as a kid, I remember the 8th Street, particularly this area, was humming with activity. Lots of shops, lots of things, restaurants, lots of things going on. No hustler store when I was a kid.
Well, this whole street became Hustler Street when I went to
Hustler
college.
City. Watch out for this dude.
Oh yeah, let's just hang here for a second.
There he stopped. Let's go past him.
Yeah.
So thank you.
This is Sketch Avenue.
Sketch City.
Gross. Garbage everywhere.
Well, I want to thank the viewer sponsors that make the show possible, Charles.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for watching on Mother's Day and every day.
Subscribestar has just implemented the ability to email everybody.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this morning I've sent out an email to the $2 per month sponsors, letting everybody know that a lot of people have missed the various announcements that I've made. It's just not economically feasible for me to offer $2 per month sponsorships anymore. There were so many people signing up and watching at $2, it drove up that my only choice was to either end the show or terminate $2 per month sponsorship. And a lot of people, when they got that message, said they understand, and they've upgraded now to $5 a month.
That's nice.
I'm offering those sponsors a free month. People who are sticking with me on subscribestar.com/crowdsource the truth and upping their sponsorship. I mean, look, if you think about it, you look around at the industry, there is nobody in the streaming video industry that's offering anything for $2 a month. Even Paramount,
CNN Plus is.
well, no, they were 12 or something. Even Paramount, when you want to watch with commercials, it's $5 a month. So most people understand that just delivering this technology, I've got to use service providers that charge me. So thank you to everybody who is sponsoring the show. It's the only way I can keep the show going. So if you like it, it's a great idea to sponsor. And for people who can't sponsor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, email the videos to your friends. At one point, tweet them. At one point, Gab, you could be on Parler, you could be on all these other things. At one point, there were 120,000 subscribers to the Jason Goodman channel. That's been destroyed by the smelly feet social engineers who, in part, were trying to jam you up with the FBI, etc. They're all playing a role in that, Charles. We could make a head garden of idiot heads.
You have to have a head to qualify as an idiot.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'll leave you here.
I think that's going to be the end of the show, Charles. Excellent episode today. Happy Mother's Day.
And to you, and to your mother.
You wouldn't be a father without a mother, so enjoy.
Well, I don't know the science on that, Jason.
Oh, good point. We got to get a biologist on the show. But thanks for watching, everybody. And thanks to all the mothers.